Yo, 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 ¿qué tal Argentina? ¡Vamos Argentina! Actually, I know I have a lot of Argentinian viewers, so shout out to mis amigos en Argentina. Te amo mucho. I am tall, your favorite sweet Zionist prince. Read the merch and weep. This merch is coming out real soon. Today we're looking at a clip of Javier Milei at the UN, the president or prime minister, I don't remember how it works in Argentina, of Argentina in the UN, giving a speech about a bunch of topics, but also about Israel. Again, I'm your sweet Zionist prince. This merch is coming out real soon on thetravelingcloud.com. Let's take a look at this clip.
At some point, and as often happens with most of the bureaucratic structures that we humans create, this organization stopped upholding the principles outlined in its founding declaration and began to mutate. An organization that had been conceived essentially as a shield to protect the realm of men transformed into a multi-tentacled leviathan that seeks to decide not only what each nation-state should do, but also how all the citizens of the world should live. This is how we went from an organization that pursued peace to an organization that imposes an ideological agenda on its members regarding a myriad of issues that pertain to human life in society. The model of the United Nations that had been successful, whose origins we can trace back to the ideas of President Wilson, who spoke of a society of peace without victory, and was based on the cooperation of nation-states, has been abandoned. It has been replaced by a model of supranational governance by international bureaucrats who intend to impose a certain way of life on the citizens of the world. What is being discussed this week here in New York at the Summit for the Future is nothing other than the deepening of that tragic course that this institution has adopted from a model that, in the words of the United Nations Secretary himself, demands the definition of a new social contract on a global scale, doubling down on the commitments of the 2030 Agenda. I want to be clear about the position of the Argentine Agenda. The 2030 Agenda, although well-intentioned in its goals, is nothing more than a supranational socialist government program that aims to solve the problems of modernity with solutions that undermine the sovereignty of nation-states and violate the right to life, liberty, and property of individuals. It is an agenda that aims to solve poverty, inequality, and discrimination with legislation that only deepens these issues, because the history of the world shows that the only way to guarantee prosperity is by limiting the power of the monarch, ensuring equality before...
Oh, we got a little internet outage.
Solve poverty, inequality, and discrimination with legislation that only deepens these issues, because the history of the world shows that the only way to guarantee prosperity is by limiting the power of the monarch, ensuring equality before the law, and defending the right to life, liberty, and property of individuals. It has been precisely the adoption of this agenda which responds to privileged interests and the abandonment of the principles outlined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of the United Nations that has distorted the role of this institution and set it on the wrong path. Thus, we have seen how an organization that was born to defend human rights has been one of the main drivers of the systematic violation of freedom, such as the global quarantines during the year 2020, which should be considered a crime against humanity. In this very House that claims to defend human rights, they have allowed the entry of bloody dictatorships like those of Cuba and Venezuela without the slightest reproach. In this very House that claims to defend the rights of women, it allows countries that punish their women for showing skin to enter the Committee for the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women.
Good. Call them out.
In this very House, there has been a systematic voting against the State of Israel, which is the only country in the Middle East that defends liberal democracy, while simultaneously demonstrating a total inability to respond to the scourge of terrorism. In the economic sphere, collectivist policies have been promoted that undermine economic growth, violate property rights, and hinder the natural economic process, preventing the most disadvantaged countries in the world from freely enjoying their own resources to move forward. Regulations and prohibitions driven precisely by the countries that developed by doing the same things they now condemn. A toxic relationship has also been promoted between global governance policies and international credit organizations, demanding that the most marginalized countries commit resources they do not have to programs they do not need, turning them into perpetual debtors to promote the agenda of global elites. The oversight of the World Economic Forum has also not helped, where ridiculous policies with Malthusian blinders are promoted, such as zero-emission policies, which primarily harm poor countries, and policies related to sexual and reproductive rights, when the birth rate in Western countries is collapsing, signaling a bleak future for all. The organization has also not satisfactorily fulfilled its mission to defend the territorial sovereignty of its members, as we Argentinians know firsthand in relation to the Malvinas Islands. And we have even reached a situation where the Security Council, which is the most important body of this House, has become distorted because the veto of its permanent members has begun to be used in defense of the particular interests of some. This is where we stand today, with an organization powerless to provide solutions to the real global conflicts, such as the aberration and abhorrent Russian invasion of Ukraine, which has already cost the lives of more than 300,000 people, leaving over 1 million injured in the process. An organization that, instead of addressing these conflicts, invests time and effort in imposing on poor countries how and what they should produce, who they should associate with, what they should eat, and what they should believe, how it intends to dictate the present pact of the future. This long list of errors and contradictions has not been without consequence, as it has led to a loss of credibility for the United Nations among the citizens of the free world and has distorted its functions. That is why I want to issue a warning. We are facing an end of a cycle. Collectivism and the moral posturing of the UOC agenda have collided with reality and no longer have credible solutions to offer for the real problems of the world. In fact, they never did. If the 2030 agenda has failed, as its own promoters acknowledge, the response should be to ask ourselves if it was not a poorly conceived program from the start, accept that reality, and change course. One cannot insist on persisting in error, doubling down on an agenda that has always failed. The same happens with ideas that come from the left. They design a model according to what they believe humans should do, and when individuals freely act otherwise, they have no better solution than to restrict, repress, and curtail their freedom. We in Argentina have already seen with our own eyes what lies at the end of this path of envy and passions. Poverty, ignorance, anarchy, and a fatal absence of freedom. We still have time to steer away from that course. I want to be clear about something to avoid any misunderstandings. Argentina is currently undergoing a profound process of change. It has decided to embrace the ideas of freedom, those ideas that state that all citizens are born free and equal before the law, that we have inalienable rights granted by the Creator, among which are the rights to life, liberty, and property. Those principles that govern the process of change we are undertaking in Argentina are also the principles that will guide our international conduct from now on. We believe in the defense of the life of all. We believe in the defense of the property of all. We believe in freedom of expression for all. We believe in freedom of worship for all. We believe in freedom of trade for all. And we believe in limited governments for all. And as what happens in one country quickly impacts others, we believe that all peoples must live free from tyranny and oppression, whether it takes the form of political oppression, economic slavery, or religious fanaticism. That fundamental idea must not remain mere words. It must be supported by actions, diplomatically, economically, and materially. Through the joint strength of all the countries that defend freedom, this doctrine of the new Argentina is nothing more and nothing less than the true essence of the United Nations. That is, the cooperation of the United Nations in defense of freedom. If the United Nations decides to return to the principles that gave it life and readapt the role for which it was conceived, count on the unwavering support of Argentina in the fight for freedom. Know also that Argentina will not support any policy that involves the restriction of individual freedoms, trade, or the violation of the natural rights of individuals, regardless of who promotes it or how much consensus that institution has. For this reason, we want to officially express our dissent regarding the Pact of the Future signed on Sunday and invite all the nations of the free world to join us not only in dissenting this pact, but also in creating a new agenda for this noble institution, the agenda of freedom. From this day forward, know that the Republic of Argentina will abandon the historical position of neutrality that has characterized us and will be at the forefront of the fight in defense of freedom. For as Thomas Paine said, those who wish to reap the blessings of freedom must, as men, endure the fatigue of defending it. May God bless the Argentinians and all the citizens of the world, and may the forces of heaven be with us. Long live freedom, damn it. Thank you very much.
Oh, there we go. I was muted. I couldn't tell if this was Javier's actual voice. If somebody could tell me if that was AI in the comments down below that just dubbed over his voice. If it is, it's fucking insane how good it was. This is exactly what has been needed. And I think the whole time while I was listening to his speech, I'm thinking in the back of my head, I think what we're seeing right now is the fall of the UN. The UN... If you guys haven't watched my Trump UN speech video, please go watch it because I give a personal story about my personal gripe with the UN and the way I've interacted with the UN in the past. I have another story that I want to tell now about the UN because I've encountered the UN in real life multiple times, actually. I have quite a few stories from the UN. But Javier points out to this, I think we're at this tipping point where the world is changing. And we're looking at the potential collapse of global unity the way that we once knew it after World War II. And I think generation like me today has no belief in the UN anymore. And whether you're on the political left, political right, or a moderate, there's no reason for you to believe in this institution. It hasn't done anything good for you if you're on the left, hasn't done anything good for you on the right, and it's definitely not done anything good for you if you're in the middle. Nobody benefits from the UN other than completely corrupt individuals. In any way, which way you look at it, it's bad. So I think the world is splintering into different factions right now, and we may see a withdrawal from the UN by multiple nations in the near future. I think it's also going to be one of those things that has that residual precipitation effect. It's like one country will exit and then a bunch, but it's going to take a while for that one country to exit. But once that first country says deuces, we're out, it's going to start that snowball effect where a bunch of countries will just leave. And I think that's where we're at. I really do believe that we're at this point where just people have had enough in countries who want to be a part of this quote-unquote free world. Countries like Argentina, countries like Israel, countries like the United States of America. We're not seeing any benefit in being a part of the United Nations. It is not helping anybody. It's actually making things worse. And eventually there's going to be a point where you hit this wall and you have to say, I'm out. I'm gone. No more. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. When a couple years ago, I met a girl who I don't want to say romantically involved with, but there was something starting. She worked for the UN. She may be watching this video. I don't think she is, but in case she's watching this video, you know who you are. Amazing woman. When it came to conversations about the inept corruption of the UN, when it came to conversations about how much the UN has failed the world, I saw firsthand the deep brain rot and brain washing that just being an employee, and I would say she was a moderately low-level employee for the United Nations, just at that level, how much brainwashing and brain rot was done upon her by the United Nations. I remember having conversations with her about these claims of genocide and then confronting her with the idea that the UN was involved in attacks on October 7th. And talking to her about the story that I mentioned in the Trump video about how the UN wronged me personally in the island I was living on in the Philippines. And there was always a defense for it. There was always a reason why. Instead of acknowledging that the UN is corrupt, instead of acknowledging the UN has been infiltrated by sources. I remember talking to her as a woman she was from a developing country, talking about the fact that there were multiple countries like the IRGC of Iran and Afghanistan who were sitting on the women's rights councils at the UN, and confronting her about this idea and how could that be justified in any way, shape, or form, and hearing these bullshit justifications and gaslighting towards me of why this is right, why this is right. It made me think, is like, if she's just one product of this, and again, no shade to her, she's an amazing person, but she's just one product, one low-level, like moderately low-level employee at the UN. What could that look like going up to the top? What could that look like at a high level? What could a person at the UN, right? The person at the UN should be the first person able to conduct conversations, deep conversations about very, very divisive and difficult to talk topics, specifically like Israel versus Palestine. She was completely incapable. And I found that most people I know that are affiliated with the UN, either heavily supportive of the UN or otherwise, incapable of having these tough conversations. And she was just one example of somebody who works there. Okay? And I know a couple. Yeah, I know a few people who are involved in the UN. Completely incapable of having conversations about these topics. I think Javier Milei is correct. I think it's an institution that's been invaded by leftist ideology and now is going to impose that ideology on the rest of the world. And you know what, baby? There's a large portion of the world who wants to say, fuck that. I'm not interested. I'm not interested in being a part of your worldview. I'm not an anarchist. I don't want destruction. I don't want pilug, separation. I like elements of a globalist agenda where we all come together. But there needs to be limits. There needs to be limitations. There needs to be borders drawn where we say, this is mine, this is yours. I act this way, you act that way. Do not impose on me. And I do believe that there's some sort of global moral right, moral left, moral right and moral wrong. And I don't think the UN is standing on the moral right anymore, at all, in any way, shape, or form. I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you long time. This merch is coming out very, very soon. It's got a super cool design on the back, too. Travelingclad.com. It's going to be coming out soon. All the designs on travelingclad.com are pretty much going to change. So anything on there that you haven't gotten yet, if you want it, the design's probably going away pretty soon. And prices are going to go slightly up. So last opportunity to get some stuff. See you guys in the next one. Love you a long time. Goodbye, Clads. If you believe in my content and want to support me, just know your help is needed. There's a bunch of great ways to support me, being PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, or joining my Patreon community down below. Patreon is the best way to support my channel, and you'll get a bunch of cool perks depending on what tier you join. Another great way to support me is by buying my merchandise on the travelingclat.com. I regularly drop new merch designs like this beautiful hat or this amazing shirt, where you can support the channel and get something cool for yourself. I also have an amazing Discord community with people from all over the world. Thank you so much for your support.